You wake up every morning and put on a face that isn't yours. You slide into a personality like you're putting on clothes, carefully chosen, perfectly fitted to what others expect to see. But tell me something. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and recognized the person staring back at you? When was the last time you felt authentically, genuinely yourself, without the weight of performance crushing your chest? I'm talking about that moment when you're not calculating your next move, not editing your words, not molding your reactions to fit someone else's comfort zone. When did you last experience the raw, unfiltered truth of your own existence? When did you last feel the electric pulse of being fully, completely, unapologetically alive in your own skin? Nietzsche called it the herd mentality, this desperate need to belong, to fit in, to be accepted by a society that demands conformity above truth. He saw how we sacrifice our individual will, our unique perspective, our authentic power on the altar of social acceptance. And Jung understood this so deeply when he spoke of the persona, that mask we wear in social situations, the role we play to navigate the world. But here's what they both knew, what they both tried to warn us about. The longer you wear that mask, the more it begins to fuse with your skin. The role you play starts to play you. The persona you've crafted so carefully becomes a prison of your own making, and the bars are invisible because they're made of other people's expectations, woven together with your own terror of rejection, strengthened by years of conditioning that taught you that who you are isn't enough. You've been performing for so long that you've forgotten it's a performance. You've been people-pleasing, shape-shifting, molding yourself into whatever version others need you to be. And somewhere along the way, you lost track of who you actually are beneath all those layers of pretense. The real you, that wild, authentic, sometimes inconvenient truth of your being, has been suffocating under the weight of everyone else's expectations. It's like being buried alive, but the burial is so gradual, so subtle, that you barely notice until you're gasping for air in your own life, clawing at the dirt of other people's opinions that has accumulated over your true self, like sediment over decades. Think about it. How many times today did you bite your tongue when you wanted to speak your truth? How many times did you smile when you felt like crying? How many times did you agree when every fiber of your being wanted to rebel? How many times did you laugh at jokes that weren't funny, nod at opinions that made your soul recoil, or enthusiastically supported ideas that felt like poison in your mouth? How many times did you suppress your intuition, ignore your instincts, override your gut feelings because they didn't align with what was expected, what was safe, what was socially acceptable? This is the slow death Nietzsche spoke of, not the dramatic kind that happens in an instant, but the gradual erosion of your soul, one compromise at a time. Death by 1,000 small betrayals of yourself. Death by the accumulated weight of moments when you chose their comfort over your truth. Your family taught you early, didn't they? Be good. Be quiet. Be what we need you to be. Don't make waves. Don't cause trouble. Don't be too much, too loud, too different. They didn't do it with malice most of the time. They were simply passing down the same conditioning they received, the same survival strategies that help them navigate a world that punishes authenticity and rewards conformity. Your parents, shaped by their own traumas, their own fears, their own unhealed wounds, taught you that love was conditional, that acceptance came with a price, that being yourself was a luxury you couldn't afford. They meant well, but in teaching you to be acceptable, they accidentally taught you to be invisible. In showing you how to fit in, they inadvertently showed you how to disappear. In protecting you from rejection, they taught you to reject yourself. So you learned to edit yourself, to present only the acceptable parts, to hide the messy, complicated, beautifully imperfect truth of who you are. You became a master of camouflage, blending into whatever environment demanded, reading the room like your life depended on it, because emotionally it did. You learned that love was conditional, that acceptance came with terms and conditions, that being yourself was a risk you couldn't take. You developed an uncanny ability to sense what others wanted from you and deliver it flawlessly, like a method actor who never breaks character. But in the process, you began to disappear. You became so good at being what others needed that you forgot what you needed. You became so skilled at reading their emotions that you lost touch with your own. At work, you wear the professional mask, competent, reliable, never showing vulnerability or doubt. You've perfected the art of corporate speak, learned to navigate office politics with the precision of a diplomat, mastered the delicate balance of being ambitious but not threatening, confident but not arrogant, personable but not too personal. You smile at micromanaging bosses who crush your creativity, laugh at inappropriate jokes from colleagues who make you uncomfortable, and swallow your innovative ideas when they challenge the status quo that keeps everyone safely mediocre. You've become so good at being what your workplace needs that you've forgotten what you need from your work: fulfillment, purpose, creative expression, genuine contribution to something meaningful. You sit in meetings discussing strategies you don't believe in, working on projects that bore your soul, climbing ladders that lead to nowhere you actually want to go. With friends, you're the entertainer, the helper, the one who never has problems of your own. You're the designated listener, the problem solver, the emotional support system for everyone else's drama, while your own inner turmoil remains carefully hidden behind a facade of having it all together. You've learned to be fascinating without being vulnerable, supportive without being needy, available without being demanding. You laugh a little too loudly at their stories, minimize your own experiences when they share the spotlight, and carefully curate which parts of your life you allow them to see. You've become so skilled at being the friend everyone wants that you've lost touch with the friend you need. You give and give and give until you're empty, then wonder why you feel so alone in a room full of people who think they know you. With your romantic partners, you become who they need you to be: the strong one, the vulnerable one, the adventurous one, the stable one. You mold yourself to fit their desires, their fantasies, their projections of who they want you to be. You suppress the parts of yourself that might cause conflict, highlight the aspects they find attractive, and slowly lose yourself in the relationship. You wonder why intimacy feels so hollow, why making love feels like performance, why even in your most tender moments you feel like you're playing a role. It's because you are. You're so busy being who they want that you've forgotten how to be who you are. And they fall in love with a character you're playing, not the person you actually are beneath the performance. With your family, you're still playing the role they assigned you decades ago: the responsible one, the rebel, the peacemaker, the disappointment, the golden child, the black sheep. These roles were cast before you had any say in the matter, written into the family script before you could even speak. And now, years later, you find yourself trapped in a character that no longer fits but that everyone expects you to keep playing. You show up to family gatherings and immediately feel yourself shrinking back into old patterns, old dynamics, old versions of yourself that you thought you'd outgrown. The successful adult you've become elsewhere suddenly feels like a costume that doesn't fit in this familiar setting. You revert to childhood coping mechanisms, resurrect adolescent defenses, and leave these gatherings feeling drained, frustrated, and somehow smaller than when you arrived. But who are you when no one is watching? Who are you in the silence of your own thoughts when the audience has gone home? Who are you at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep because the weight of pretending is crushing your chest? Who are you in those moments when the mask slips and something real and raw and true tries to surface? Who are you in your car, after a social event, when you finally exhale and feel the exhaustion of performing for hours? Who are you in the shower, when the hot water washes away the day's pretenses? Who are you in those brief moments between sleep and waking, before you remember which version of yourself you need to be today? These are the moments that terrify you the most, not because they're painful, but because they're real, because they remind you of what you've lost in your pursuit of acceptance, because they whisper the truth you've been trying so hard to avoid, that you've become a stranger to yourself. Jung called this the process of individuation, the psychological journey toward becoming who you truly are, separate from the collective expectations and projections of others. But individuation requires something most people are terrified of. It requires you to disappoint people. It requires you to let others down. It requires you to choose your authentic self over their comfort with who they think you should be. It requires you to risk rejection, abandonment, criticism, and the terrible possibility that when you show up as yourself, you might not be enough. It requires you to face the fact that some people in your life love the character you play more than they could ever love the person you actually are. And that's a devastating realization, but it's also the beginning of freedom. The persona isn't evil. Jung never suggested it was. It serves a purpose, a necessary function in our social world. We need it to function in society, to navigate complex social situations, to protect our tender inner world from those who might not understand or appreciate our full truth. The persona is like clothing, necessary for social interaction, protective against the elements but not meant to be permanently grafted to your skin. Jung never suggested we abandon the persona entirely. He understood it as a necessary tool for social interaction, like a translator that helps us communicate across the vast differences between human experiences. But when the persona becomes the master instead of the servant, when you lose touch with the real self beneath the mask, when you begin to believe that you are the role you play, you begin to live what Nietzsche called a counterfeit existence. You know this feeling, don't you? That hollow sensation after a social interaction, where you performed perfectly but felt completely empty afterward. That bone-deep exhaustion that comes not from physical exertion, but from the constant mental gymnastics of being someone you're not. That creeping anxiety that someone might see through your carefully constructed facade and discover that you're not who you pretend to be. That suffocating sense that your life is happening to someone else while you watch from behind glass, unable to participate authentically in your own experience. That terrible moment when you realize you've become so good at being what others want, that you have no idea what you actually want for yourself. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who love the version of you that you present to them, but have never met the person you actually are. It's the loneliness of being applauded for a performance while your true self sits in the empty theater of your inner world, waiting for someone, anyone, to acknowledge its existence. This is perhaps the cruelest irony of the persona. The more successful you become at being what others want, the more isolated you feel from genuine connection. You can be the most popular person in the room and still feel utterly alone because nobody in that room knows who you really are. They love your performance. They enjoy your company. They seek out your presence, but they're relating to a character, not to you. The shadow, Jung's term for all the parts of yourself you've rejected, hidden, or denied, doesn't disappear just because you refuse to acknowledge it. These disowned aspects of your personality don't vanish into thin air. They go underground, into the unconscious, where they fester and grow and eventually demand recognition through symptoms: depression, anxiety, rage, addiction, compulsive behavior, self-sabotage. Your shadow contains not just your darkness but also your light, the dreams you've abandoned, the talents you've suppressed, the desires you've denied because they didn't fit the image you were trying to maintain. Your wildness, your creativity, your sexuality, your ambition, your selfishness, your anger, all these natural human qualities that you've learned to hide are still there, demanding integration. But here's what's beautiful and terrifying about the truth. The very thing you're afraid they'll discover, your real self, is exactly what the world needs from you. Your authenticity is not a liability. It's your greatest gift. Your quirks, your struggles, your unconventional thoughts, your emotional depth, your weird sense of humor, your particular way of seeing the world, your unique perspective forged by your specific combination of experiences, these aren't flaws to be hidden. They're the colors that make your particular painting of existence unique and necessary. The world doesn't need another perfect copy. It needs your original masterpiece. The world is oversaturated with personas, with performances, with people trying to be what they think they should be. What's rare, what's precious, what's desperately needed is authenticity. Nietzsche wrote about the will to power, not power over others, but power over yourself. The strength to become who you truly are despite the pressure to be someone else. This isn't about being selfish or inconsiderate. It's about having the courage to show up as yourself in a world that profits from your insecurity and conformity. It's about recognizing that your authenticity is an act of rebellion against forces that would rather have you as a compliant consumer than a fully realized human being. It's about understanding that your real self has a power, a magnetism, a creative force that your persona could never possess because it's not trying to be anything other than what it is. Every time you choose the persona over your authentic self, you're making a choice. You're choosing temporary acceptance over long-term fulfillment. You're choosing others' comfort over your own truth. You're choosing the familiar prison of conformity over the uncertain freedom of authenticity. But these choices accumulate. They compound. Like interest on a debt you never meant to take on, they grow in the darkness of your unconscious until the cost becomes unbearable. Each small betrayal of yourself adds up, creating a deficit in your soul that no amount of external validation can fill. And one day, you wake up and realize you've built an entire life around a person who isn't really you. A house of cards that collapses the moment you try to be real. The relationships built on your persona are relationships with a ghost. The success achieved through conformity is hollow, because it belongs to the character you're playing, not to you. The love you receive for being what others want you to be is conditional love. It evaporates the moment you stop performing, the instant you reveal something that doesn't fit their projection of who you should be. And deep down, you know this. Deep down, you can feel the difference between being loved for who you are and being loved for who you pretend to be. The first feels like coming home to yourself. The second feels like being a guest in your own life, always on your best behavior, never able to fully relax into your own skin. This is why authentic relationships feel so different, so nourishing, so life-giving. When someone sees your real self, your struggles, your darkness, your light, your contradictions, your humanity in all its messy glory, and chooses to love you anyway, that's when you remember what it feels like to be alive. That's when you remember that connection is possible, but only when you're brave enough to remove the mask. These relationships are rare because they require vulnerability from both parties, and vulnerability is the very thing the persona is designed to avoid. But when you find them, when you cultivate them, they become the foundation of a life worth living. The path back to yourself isn't easy, and anyone who tells you it is hasn't walked it. It requires grieving the person you thought you had to be, and that grief is real, sharp, necessary. You've invested so much time and energy into crafting and maintaining your persona that letting it go can feel like losing a part of yourself. It requires disappointing people who preferred your performance to your truth, and some of these people might leave your life entirely. It requires facing the parts of yourself you've been running from, the anger you've suppressed, the dreams you've abandoned, the desires you've denied, the wounds you've never healed. It requires the radical act of self-acceptance in a world that teaches self-rejection from birth, that profits from your insecurity, that needs you to believe you're not enough so you'll keep buying, consuming, performing, trying to fill a void that can only be filled from within. But here's what Nietzsche knew, what Jung discovered, what every person who has undertaken this journey learns. The real you is not only enough, the real you is magnificent. Your authenticity has a power that your persona could never possess because it's connected to the source of life itself. Your truth has an impact that your performance could never achieve because truth resonates in people's souls in a way that fiction never can. Your real self has the capacity for genuine connection, creative expression, and deep fulfillment that your mask could never access, because masks can only relate to other masks, surfaces to surfaces. When you show up authentically, you give others permission to do the same. Your courage to be real becomes an invitation for others to drop their masks too. The persona you wear is not protecting you, it's suffocating you. It's not serving you, it's enslaving you. It's not connecting you to others, it's keeping you isolated in a performance that no one, not even you, truly enjoys. The exhaustion you feel isn't from living too fully. It's from not living at all. It's from existing in the shallow waters of social acceptability instead of diving into the depths of your own truth. It's from spending your precious life energy maintaining an image instead of exploring the vast landscape of your authentic experience. So what if you stopped? What if you began, slowly, carefully, courageously, to remove the layers of pretense? What if you started speaking your truth, even when your voice shakes with fear? What if you began showing your real emotions, even when they're inconvenient for others? What if you stopped trying to be who everyone else needs you to be and started being who you actually are? What if you honored your own needs, expressed your genuine opinions, shared your authentic feelings, and pursued your real dreams instead of the ones you think will make others proud? The real you is not too much. The real you is not too little. The real you is not a mistake, a problem to be solved, or a rough draft waiting for revision. The real you is the masterpiece you came here to be, the unique expression of consciousness that only you can offer this world. But that masterpiece remains hidden, as long as you're committed to presenting a counterfeit instead. Every day you choose the persona over authenticity is another day the world goes without your particular gift. Another day you betray the truth of your existence. Nietzsche spoke of becoming who you are, not who you should be, not who others want you to be, but who you actually are beneath all the conditioning, all the fear, all the desperate attempts to belong. This is the most radical act of rebellion in a world that demands conformity, the choice to be authentically, unapologetically yourself. This is how you stop slowly dying and start truly living. This is how you honor the gift of your existence. This is how you save yourself from the beautiful prison of your own persona and step into the wild, uncertain, magnificent freedom of your authentic self. This is how you finally come home to yourself, how you reclaim your birthright of being fully, completely, authentically alive.